my name is Melanie McCarthy, and I'm here at the Museum of Fine Arts Houston to present to you Glassell on the Go at Home, Section 3, Engaging and Persisting. This video is for Project 1. In today's video, we're going to be making our very own abstract painting. In order to do this, we first need to look at one of the pioneers of abstract art, Wassily Kandinsky. On your handout, you should have a picture of one of his prints. It's a drawing that he did, and his inspiration was often from music. Now, this is very important to keep in mind because the lines and shapes on his drawing are abstract, but they are coming from a real-life song that he was listening to. Additionally, he also drew abstract shapes from real-life objects. That being said, can you look at his drawing and point out shapes that might look like something from the real world? For example, when I look at this drawing, I see a boat on waves. This is really interesting because although this is abstract, we can reference some real-life objects. Another thing I want to mention is the balance of this composition is really exceptional. On the top upper left hand, we have a black circle. And this black circle is a great balance for all of the chaos on the whole entire right-hand side and bottom of the drawing. I really want you to look at this drawing and think in your head, what shapes do I like? And what shapes do I not like? Is there something that I'm drawn to? And is there something that my eye kind of wants to look away from? Now, consider the environment that you're in, the room that you're in. There are shapes all around you. Even the screen that you're looking on is a rectangle. So I want you to really consider all of the shapes that make up the space that you're in. Wassily Kandinsky once said that everything starts with a dot. So keep this in mind as we make our own artwork. In your kit, you should have some tracing paper, a pencil, some tape, a canvas board, some paints, and a piece of chalk. Additionally, you're going to have a paintbrush and you're going to need to get a cup of water in order to paint. So to begin with, we're going to start with your marker and the tracing paper. So step one is to be an explorer. We're going to go around collecting shapes. So what I mean by that is this tracing paper is going to be the spot where you record the shapes that you see. We're going to have to use some flat surfaces in order to trace the marker with the tracing paper. So I brought some things from my house, some little pieces of junk that I've compiled and I can't seem to throw away. A postcard, a free ice cream, a bag of chips, and we're going to take these shapes and put them underneath the tracing paper. Now, while you're collecting shapes, it's really important to keep in mind the balance. Like I said at the beginning, the black circle on Kandinsky's drawing really balances out the chaos at the bottom. So I'm going to start recording some drawings. And you want to make sure that whatever you're drawing, you can't reference the original piece of paper or trash. You want to abstract it kind of like how Kandinsky did. He may be referencing a boat, he may not be referencing a boat. We're not really sure. It's kind of up to the mind's eye. So I have this so far, and I'm going to use this ice cream thing. The more shapes you do, the more complicated it will begin to, the longer time it'll take. So you might want to consider that when deciding how much detail you want to have. So another important thing to remember is that you can always keep shifting and moving this around to make sure that your balance and weight of your composition is balanced. If you're feeling really experimental, you can always put this tracing paper on a mirror and trace reflections from the mirror, or even on a window and trace things from outside. Once you have all of your shapes and lines collected, like so, and you're happy with the composition, the balance, and the weight of the objects and lines on your drawing, then let's move on to the next step. Take your crayon or your chalk, and on the back of this piece of paper, you're going to cover the back with a light layer of chalk. So you want to make sure that there's not too much or too little. Make sure it's fully covered, and then somewhere where you can have like a trash can or something, like dust off the excess. I have plastic right here, so I can do that. And then you're going to take your canvas and your sheet of paper, your drawing, and put the chalk facing the canvas board. Keep in mind you're only using the amount of your drawing that is the size of this canvas. So if you've drawn all over this piece of paper, you're going to have to choose a rectangle about this size, and you can always just move it around and finding the correct composition. I created this with the canvas board in mind, so mine fits rather perfectly. So once again, you put the chalk onto the canvas board, and you're going to want to tape it because we're tracing it and we're transferring it over, and if it's not taped, it moves around a bit. So just make sure it's secure somewhere so you don't lose your place. All right, so make sure it can't move too much. Readjust so your composition is what you want it to be. And now you're going to take your pencil and trace your drawing. By doing this, you're putting pressure on the parts that you want to transfer over. So make sure you don't press your whole entire weight of your hand onto the paper, or else the orange chalk will start to transfer and you won't be able to see your drawing. So I'm going to do a little tester and see if it transferred over. So it's starting to transfer over. That means I have the correct amount of chalk on here. So I'm going to keep going and transfer over the entirety of my drawing by tracing the drawing with this pencil. So by now you should have a light impression of your drawing transferred over. If you have any of these excess spaces, excess chalk, don't worry about it because when we paint, it's going to get covered over. You can always reference your original drawing, and this is very erasable. So if it is bothering you, just lightly erase it. Now that you're finished with transferring your drawing over onto the canvas board, place your original tracing somewhere where you can see it. You're going to want to reference this while you're painting. Okay, so you should have a cup of water to go with your paintbrush, and in order to mix the paints and the waters, you're going to need something plasticky or even cardboardy to use as a palette. If you don't have anything like a plastic bag, you can also use the extra piece of tracing paper that is in your packet. So I'm going to start laying down the colors onto my canvas. There are two ways to do this. If you haven't started painting yet, you can always do a backdrop before you start painting, which is where you paint originally and then you would have transferred the drawing onto here. I'm not going to do that today, but it's definitely a great option if you're in a rush. It takes about 20 minutes for the backdrop to dry, and you mix a really thin layer of paint, so that means a lot of water and a little bit of paint, onto the canvas as a light wash. So another thing I want to mention before you start painting and while you're just planning is to use a limited color palette. That'll make your decisions a little bit easier. So I think I'm going to highlight today blue and yellow, I think. And then kind of like how Kandinsky in his, he had blue and red and black. That just makes things a bit easier. Okay. One thing that makes your decision making a bit easier is coming up with rules. So a rule I made here is that every circle is blue. Alrighty, so I'm finishing up the final touches, but as you can see, I lost a bit of the detail from my original drawing. So when this is dry, if I want to, I can go back in with this marker and add some highlights for detail. Alrighty, so this is what I came up with. It's definitely very interesting. Looking back on my original thoughts about Kandinsky's work, I can see some parallels about the objects that I liked. I mentioned at the beginning how I really liked the disc at the top left hand of his print, and I didn't mean to do this, but I can see how I used circles all over this. So I was kind of thinking about the circles that he used in the back of my mind. So I'm so excited to see what y'all made, and thank you so much for being a part of Glassell on the Go at Home.